there's a lot of really wild and unbelievable conspiracy theories out there. From fake moon landings to lizard people, I have encountered my fair share. My name is Dakota, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to be discussing conspiracy theories that I 100% believe are true. I'm not a QAnon conspiracy nut, but a lot of these are going to seem pretty unbelievable at first. I fully believe that aliens are real, and I really don't understand how people could disagree with this. Look at Earth. We are proof that living creatures have the ability to exist. Scientists estimate that there's between 100 and 200 billion galaxies, at least. For reference, 100 billion seconds is over 3,000 years. It is not only unlikely, but borderline insane to think that Earth's the only planet that can sustain life. Now, I don't think that aliens built the pyramids, and I don't think that we have a Men in Black situation going on, but there has to be something out there somewhere. There's not been any conclusive evidence for alien life found, at least not by everyday people. And I have some theories about that as well. The first and probably most believable theory is that aliens haven't made contact with us because they can't. There might not be any aliens advanced or close enough to make contact with us, or they genuinely just don't know that humans exist. Theoretically, because time is relative, if there were to be a giant mirror 10 light years away, and we looked at it through a telescope, we would say 10 years in the past. So if intelligent life was 1 million light years away, they would theoretically see 1 million years into Earth's past. That was kind of a mind meld, but the second theory is much easier to understand. The second theory why aliens have not made contact with us is because Earth is not united under one rule. Because we are made up of different nations, it might be difficult for them to introduce themselves. The whole take me to your leader thing doesn't really work when there's hundreds of leaders all over the globe. The final theory I have for why aliens have not made contact with us is because they already have. Bear with me. If you were an alien and you found another planet with intelligent life, you're not just going to jump the gun and arrive on their front doorstep. You're going to scope things out, take it easy, and maybe drop some hints that alien life could exist. Now imagine you do this and it seems to be working. People are talking about aliens and everything seems to be going good. You're about to call your supervisor and tell them that it's time to fully make contact when you start noticing that aliens are in movies. So you go to check it out and oh boy, is alien life not as well received as you thought it was.
Ariana, what are you doing here?
Maybe you try to release a PR stunt or two. But it doesn't really work, so you decide to ultimately come back when humans are less hostile. That would be crazy. I personally believe that aliens exist, they're probably just too far away to make contact. My next conspiracy is much more lighthearted and way less complicated than aliens, and that is the New Coke conspiracy. The Coca-Cola company was established in 1892, and whether it was the cocaine addictions or the great taste, the company has been going strong ever since. Despite how successful the company was, in 1985 they discontinued their classic Coca-Cola in favor of New Coke. Literally everyone hated New Coke. People complained so much that Coke released Coca-Cola Classic only 11 weeks later. It literally makes no sense for Coke to abandon their original flavor, so that's where the conspiracy comes in. Many people believe that the cola at the time had a problem with one of its ingredients. Whether the ingredient was found to be toxic or just had to be changed for any reason, Coke had to change its formula. But without the ingredient, the flavor of the Coca-Cola would be different and people would be able to tell that something had changed. So to avoid people asking questions, Coca-Cola released a buffer drink. They released this terrible tasting New Coke so that people would be so desperate for the original that they wouldn't notice the change in taste. How long would it take for people to finish the Coca-Cola already released so they couldn't compare it to Coca-Cola Classic? About 11 weeks. It is also possible that New Coke was just a marketing ploy to drive up sales and increase attention to the company. But regardless, I don't think a company as established and wealthy as Coca-Cola would make such a product misstep by accident. Now this conspiracy is a piggyback off of another that you might have heard a lot of if you're around my age. There is a theory that Walt Disney had his head frozen and hidden somewhere in the Disneyland park so that he could be brought back to life when the technology was available. This was very popular when I was a kid. There was even an iCarly episode making fun of it. Do I think that this conspiracy theory is true? No. But I do think the one that comes off of it has some merit. The theory is that when Disney adapted Hans Christian Andersen's The Snow Queen into a movie, they named it to draw attention away from the conspiracy about Walt Disney's head. When you look up Disney's Frozen, you no longer get the conspiracy, you only get the movie. Even when you look up Disney's Frozen head, Anna and Elsa hairstyling dolls come up. Now, I don't think that Disney created this movie solely to draw attention away from the conspiracy, but I do think it was easy to change the name and kill two birds with one stone. I'm almost positive that the Disney company is not hiding Walt Disney's head, at least I hope they are not, but I'm sure that they were aware of the theory and wanted to draw attention away from it because it was hurting their family-friendly image, even though Disney movies can be extremely dark sometimes. A personal favorite conspiracy of mine is that the Titanic never actually sank. When the Titanic was built, it was built alongside two sister ships, the Olympic and the Britannic. The Olympic was the first to set sail and was successful on its first few journeys, but on its fifth voyage, it made an unexpected turn and crashed into another. Because the Olympic was at fault, the parent company, the White Star Line, was unable to collect any insurance money. The theory is that the White Star Line switched the Titanic and the Olympic to sink the boat on purpose to ensure that they would collect the money. It says that the Olympic was dressed in the interior of the Titanic and passed off as a luxury ocean liner. People even noticed that the sea deck portholes on the Titanic were evenly spaced while the Olympics were uneven, something it has in common with the ship that's at the bottom of the ocean. Another thing that is curious is that neither the owners of the ship were on it when it sank. Neither investor JP Morgan nor White Star Line chairman J. Bruce Ismay were present for the Titanic's trip, which is very unusual since it was the Titanic's maiden voyage. Another thing to note is that three of JP Morgan's rivals, Jacob Astor, Isidor Straus, and Benjamin Guggenheim, were all killed when the boat sank. Regardless of whether it was actually the Olympic or the Titanic that sank, over 1,500 lives were lost on April 15, 1912. Marilyn Monroe was and still is an iconic actress. On August 4, 1962, Marilyn Monroe was found dead in her Los Angeles home, with the cause of death being an overdose on pills. It is almost universally accepted that Marilyn Monroe was having an affair with one of the Kennedys, either President John F. Kennedy or General Attorney Robert Kennedy. The following information comes directly from the FBI's declassified records. On August 15, 1955, the FBI was tipped off by the Soviet embassy that Marilyn Monroe had applied for a visa to visit the USSR on August 12, 1955. On July 2, 1956, Monroe's husband, playwright Arthur Miller, admitted to having attended meetings with members of the Communist Party, and that he sponsored communist groups in the United States. In October of 1961, an FBI special agent claimed that Robert Kennedy was having an emotional and sexual affair with Marilyn Monroe, and he also claimed that Monroe was known to make suicide attempts to elicit sympathy. Later, on March 6, 1962, an FBI agent claimed that while in Mexico, Monroe had been in contact with members of the American Communist Group in Mexico in late February. It was also claimed in this report that Monroe had been in direct contact with Robert Kennedy at the home of Peter Lawford's just days before. The report also says that a relationship was forming between Monroe and an unnamed man, and that various members of the ACGM were concerned about the man's infatuation with her. Monroe reportedly left Mexico for LA on March 2, 1962. On July 18, 1962, a report was filed that claimed that Marilyn was once again having dinner with President John F. Kennedy, and was asking him about the future of atomic testing and America's youth. It also claims that Monroe was asked to perform at JFK's birthday party just days prior. The declassified records also show that the FBI kept track of multiple articles that claimed that Monroe did not commit suicide, including ones that peddled the idea that the FBI could be involved in her death. It is also interesting that one of these FBI documents says that Monroe died on March 4th of 1962. The report reads, quote, "On the day of her death, March 4th, 1962, her housekeeper put 2 bottles of pills on the night table," end quote. Then goes on to say that Monroe's secretary and press agent were cooperating in a plan to induce her suicide. Despite the report claiming that Monroe died on March 4th, she sang her iconic happy birthday song to the president on May 19th.
Happy birthday, Mr. President.
and was reportedly also with him on July 18th. This FBI document also states that Marilyn had a lesbian affair while also having an affair with both Robert Kennedy and JFK. I'm trying to piece this together just as much as you are. The reports also claim that Marilyn's psychiatrist knew that she was prescribed all these pills, but he reportedly never came to check on her until after her death. Sources outside of the FBI also claim that it took 6 hours for Monroe's body to be transported from her home to the morgue, a trip that should have taken about 45 minutes. And that's on top of the 5 months between the supposed death dates. I got all of this information from the official FBI records. Granted, the records are a little hard to read, but I can't imagine that I misinterpreted them that badly. Obviously, I'm a huge believer that somebody had a hand in the death of Marilyn Monroe. The first theory is that Monroe was killed by the CIA to either keep her quiet or to hurt the Kennedys. Monroe was known to be a communist sympathizer, and she might have learned some classified information from either the president or the attorney general. Another theory is that Robert Kennedy had her killed to cover up their affair. It is said that Robert Kennedy and his brother-in-law Peter Lawford fed her alcohol and drug addictions, and when she accidentally overdosed, they staged it as a suicide. Another theory suggests that Marilyn Monroe was killed by members of the mafia to get Robert Kennedy to back off his persecution of organized crime. And finally, it is also simply theorized that Monroe lied to her doctors about the amount of medicine she was prescribed, leading to an accidental overdose. Is it possible that Marilyn Monroe was killed for fear that she was giving information to communist parties? Yes. Is it possible that she was killed to target the Kennedys? Yes. Is it also just possible that she was a depressed woman looking for a way out? Yes. That's what makes Marilyn Monroe's death such a mystery. All of these are plausible. The one thing that really gets me is that the FBI just randomly said that she died in March. Can I just not read? I feel like I'm going crazy. Truthfully, I think the most plausible explanation is that Robert Kennedy aided Marilyn Monroe's addictions knowing that it would end her life. But why he wanted her dead is an entirely different conversation. Conspiracy theories can be a lot of fun, besides when they're making my brain hurt. But let's remember that these are just theories and to be respectful to anybody affected by these events. Let me know if you guys agree with these theories or have ideas of your own in the comments below, and as usual, have a great rest of your day.